Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 11 of season 4 of Legend of Korra called Kuvira's Gambit. And here it is, we get to see the attack on Republic City, and we find out that Kuvira had one more big trick up her sleeve, and it's a pretty impressive one. Overall, this is a really good episode. Next week, of course, is the finale. They're going to show the final two episodes, and it's going to be an hour of just pure craziness, I'm sure. So let's just kind of get right into things and start talking about some of the details. Now, before I kind of talk about what's going on with the characters, I want to share with you one observation that I noticed when we were getting some of those big overhead shots of the Colossus, and that is the official name of the mech, sort of sinking all those ships. If you pay attention, you notice that Republic City does not have suburbs. It just kind of goes skyscraper, 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 and then there's just like grass and stuff and fields and whatever. And this might seem a little weird, but it's actually not that crazy. Just from having spent a lot of time, like almost 6 years of my life living over in Japan and South Korea, it is really not that strange to suddenly just end up with a big, humongous building and right next to it be a rice field that old people go out and farm. I mean, it seems really strange to people like me from America, but that's just sort of how things work over there. I don't know if that was a deliberate thing or not, but in any case, it was something that I noticed. So let's just sort of talk about the characters. I know quite a lot of people are happy that we got to see Kai again, even though it was just in a cameo. Prince Wu. Now, he's one of the characters who's really grown quite a lot since he was introduced earlier this season. And while he still has some dorkiness to iron out, he does step in there when Mako just completely drops the ball during the evacuation, which I have to say was really pretty hilarious. You'd think that Mako would realize that that people say "keep it simple, stupid" for a reason, but Mako does have his own quirks with thinking. But Prince Wu steps in there. He just calmly and sincerely and reasonably tells people what's going on. Here's what we need you to do, and even makes sure to tell them basically if there's somebody around you that might not be able to evacuate themselves, help them. Which, despite very recently him just sort of talking about, an evacuation plan as a thing to impress Korra, here we see that whatever it is, let me try that again. That here Prince Wu is genuinely very serious and sincere about wanting to make sure that people are okay. He gives the really great broadcast, and then he and Pima even go out there and direct the evacuations personally. So this is really showing that Prince Wu has grown into a much more reasonable leader and somebody who's not afraid to go out there and, well, I can't exactly say get his hands dirty, but he's willing to do things hands-on. So obviously some of the Mako's influence has finally started to seriously show some fruit. And this kind of does lead me to think that Mako will probably kind of continue on as a team, however things end. And let's see, what else? Of course, another one of the big moments that a lot of people really enjoyed this time around was seeing Varrick and Zhu Li reunite. And, of course, Varrick immediately reverts to being a dick and trying to boss her around. And, of course, to her credit, Zhu Li just basically almost flat out tells him that she loves him. And then when he starts acting like a jerk, she tells him to go screw himself if he can't treat her as an equal. Now, another thing a lot of people are talking about is since those hummingbird mechs require 2 people to pilot, and Varrick and Zhu Li have managed to pilot, quote unquote, a giant platypus bear suit before, that these two might hop in one of those mechs, assuming at least one survived the attack on Future Industries, and use that to go out and do something. And I have to say, I think that's a pretty likely scenario. That would give those two a good reason to talk again. At the moment, Zhu Li is very steamed at Varrick, and justifiably so. And that would kind of be a great way to sort of open the door to, a final resolution between those. Like Varrick finally realizing, that he feels as strongly for Julie as she does for him. Those two could kind of, get married or whatever, and then Varric would have Julie around to sort of serve as his conscience, sort of keep his more crazy and nefarious tendencies in check. Which, of course, is exactly the sort of person that Varric needs. So I have a feeling we'll see a happy ending for those two, especially since the show has really made it a point of backing off of the romantic situations for most of the characters, with obviously Varric and Julie and Opal and Bolin being exceptions. This episode, we also kind of get to see more insight into Bataar Jr. as a character. And I love that scene where Sue even apologizes to him and says, like, whatever we did to make you feel this way, I'm sorry. And it's never been very clearly defined as to why Bataar Jr. sort of turned on his family like that. He just sort of made this sort of offhand comment about how he was tired of living in his father's shadow and all of this. Now, granted, Sue's a well-known and very important and powerful person, and his father is also someone who's very accomplished, but why exactly he feels like he spent so much time in their shadows is something I think that could have been expanded on more. I think it's really just more of a case of, it's not really anything they did specifically, it's just more that his own insecurities have sort of invented this scenario in his mind of them just keeping him down. And he just bought into that to such a degree that he started believing his own nonsense, and of course Kuvira getting her hooks into him probably didn't help. Now, of course, this brings up the question, was Kuvira playing the guy for a fool the whole time? And I have to say that while Kuvira this episode obviously plays her emotions very close to the vest, I don't think so. I think she genuinely does care about Bataar Jr. But you do sort of see she sighs in the whole situation, and it looks like you can tell that this is obviously not an easy decision for her to make. There's obviously some internal conflict. But I think what we're seeing here with Kuvira in this episode is really summed up wonderfully by a scene from a recent season of Game of Thrones. And I won't spoil it too much, but it's something that Bronn says to Tyrion. And this isn't exactly word for word, but basically Bronn says to him, "I like you, I just like myself more." And yeah, I think Kuvira does love Bataar Jr., but I think she loves herself more. She loves this dream, this mission that she has given herself. And while it's something that probably and almost certainly started out as a noble desire to reunite her homeland, to bring stability to a nation that had gone to hell, it's ultimately turned into just a question of greed and vanity on Kuvira's part. I mean, all hail the great uniter? How is that not vanity? And greed. Republic City has never done anything to the Earth Kingdom, the Earth Empire, or whatever. They've been trying to work with her diplomatically. It's just that Kuvira, granted, there is a legitimate grievance there that, yeah, this was once Earth Kingdom land. But, land changes as part of history, sometimes peacefully, very often not. And there just kind of has to come a point where you sort of have to accept that, that might have been a part of your country once, but it's not anymore. And understandably, that's not an easy thing to do, but, let's face it, time passes and things change, and, what good does harping on old grievances do? It doesn't. And as we've seen around the world, people saying like, yeah, decades and decades and generations, sometimes even hundreds of years ago, that land used to be ours. So, we're going to fight and hurt and kill people until that land is ours once again. Well, what the hell good is that land being yours again going to do? In the end, it really amounts to nothing. And, anyway, let's just kind of back off from that. And this is the whole thing with Kuvira, and you see the problem with her right here. Like, she's basically taken everything. They even basically have said to her, look, We do whatever you want with the Earth Empire. Just leave Republic City alone. And Kuvira, and you see that this is just an example of her greed and her just sort of using a not entirely wrong justification, or should I say grievance, but basically she's using that whole thing of what Avatar Aang did as an excuse to make sure she gets that last bite of the apple. I mean, Kuvira basically has 95% of everything that she could ever want, and she just can't let that last little bit go. If she just turned around, gone back to the Earth Empire, married Baatar Jr., proclaimed herself Empress, whatever, she would be easily the most powerful person in the world. But she can't. She can't let that last little bit go. And, that's obviously what's going to become her great and ultimate undoing. Now, I don't think anybody is going to have gotten killed at the factory. And after this, I can't imagine that Baatar Jr. isn't going to okay, she's completely lost it. Here's the weak point on the Colossus. And, that'll be the focus of the next episode. And then, obviously, I imagine the craziness will probably continue on into the final episode, and then we'll have a few minutes of wrap-up towards the end of the last episode. Just to sort of go out on a high note. Let me see here. Anything else? Yeah. A lot of people, and I know I'm not the only one who've noticed that some of the shots of the Colossus are very reminiscent of stuff from the famous anime series Neon Genesis Evangelion. And if you've never heard of it, basically it's the most influential mech anime of the last 20 years. It came out originally in 1995, if I remember correctly. And they have a new sort of movie remake of the series that's currently in production. I don't know if the third movie, which is supposed to be the final one, has come out in Japan yet. I haven't really been keeping up with it. But I have a lot of love for Evangelion. It's even after all these years still my favorite anime show of all time. I still have some of my Eva junk laying around that I picked up during my time living in Japan. And yeah, you can definitely see some of the Eva influence here in this episode. Of course, we also can't have this episode without mentioning that we get to see General Iroh again. Always really nice to see. Sorry, I thought I was getting I'm expecting a package. I thought the delivery guy was pulling into the driveway, but no, it was just the UPS truck driving by. But anyway, once again we get to see Dante Bosco pop up as General Iroh again. I don't know if we're going to get to see any more of the original cast. I imagine that they might sort of make a cameo appearance at the end. Do remember they have promised us that we will eventually find out who the fathers of both of Toph's children are. So I imagine that would probably be kind of a nice thing to sort of throw in there at the very end. Have Toph come to Republic City to sort of say congratulations to everyone and just sort of throw off an offhanded comment to whoever it is that's Sue's father is. And let me see, anything else I wanted to talk about? One idea that just kind of popped into my head, speaking of characters, is what's going to happen with Asami? And considering that those mech suits take two people to pilot, wouldn't it be kind of cool if she managed to kind of get her dad out of jail to help her come up with something to take down the Colossus, and then maybe those two could also pilot a mech together, or at the very least Hiroshi does something to help the situation and he ultimately ends up getting a pardon. So that way Asami could sort of get a happy ending with her and her dad. That would be a very nice way to go out for her, I think. And yep, that's kind of all I have to say about this episode. Man, guys, it's been a really crazy ride, and I cannot wait to see how things wrap up next week. It's going to be so much fun, and it's going to be the cap to what really was a great series. So, with that said, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.